Welcome to Today in Woburn. I'm your host, Samantha Stone, and we continue our election series. Today we're with Shaun O'Keeffe, and we're going to talk all about school committee. Welcome, Shaun.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We haven't had a chance to meet before, so my favorite part of the show is I get to sit down and chat with people and learn all kinds of things I wouldn't have known beforehand. So I'm really grateful that you've joined me. Tell us a little bit about your decision to run for school committee. We know it's a big commitment.
Yeah, so my wife has been showing me up for a number of years. She's been involved with the Boys and Girls Club as a board member and volunteering and working there for a number of years. And she's also on the Goodyear PTO since our daughter was in kindergarten. So I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, I have to find a way that I can give back and help out the community. And so last March, at the beginning of this pandemic, we started watching all the school committee meetings on the computer or dialing in, and we just looked at each other, and I said, this is it. Like, this is a good fit for me. Like, this is how I think I can give back. We have 2 kids in the school system. Our daughter's just started the 6th grade, and our son just started the 1st grade. So I'm going to be around the school system for a number of years.
What schools do they go to?
She just started at the Kennedy. She's in 6th grade at the Kennedy, and he is a 1st grader at the Goodyear.
Oh, that's wonderful. My kids were Kennedy middle schoolers.
Yeah. So we were just, I'm going to be around with them for a number of years, and they're going to be in a part of the system. And I thought, I've been in a finance background for 13 plus years, and the last 5 of them have been in higher education. And so we just looked at each other and we said, this is a good fit. Like, I want to be involved with these conversations that we're seeing them happening and have. And I just thought, why not go for it? And so that's why I sort of started pursuing the process.
Well, we're glad you did.
No, thank you.
I love seeing people step up and really look for opportunities to use their skills and background to help serve the community. This last year and a half has been unlike anything that we've seen. But certainly we still need to keep an eye for our vision for the schools and our school system and the role of the school community. What are some of the opportunities you see for us to sort of hunker down on the basics, of course, but to adjust and move forward and grow as a school system?
Yeah, I mean, I think a bunch of priorities sort of come to mind. I think the emotional well-being and the mental health of our staff and students is going to be forefront for the foreseeable future. So I think we need to make sure that we have all the resources available to this community so that they feel supported and feel like they have everything that they need to be successful as a teacher, as a staff member, as a student. In terms of supporting our teachers in their roles, I mean, I think we have to constantly look at the resources that they need. And I think during the pandemic, much in like private industry, training and development was hard to do over the past year and a half. And so I think that needs to be a focus again. I think we need to continuously look at putting our staff in a position where they can be successful. And that certainly comes with training and development. And then you have to think about, most importantly, the students, right?
Yeah.
I think are we staying innovative on the way that we keep our students engaged in the process of learning? I want the kids to be as excited on the first day of school as they are as a graduating senior. I mean, I think learning should be a lifelong process and trip. And I think, I think standardized testing are certainly important, and they certainly have their place, but I want our students to just have a lifelong learning, a love for learning. Yeah. And I think I think we need to stay innovative, and I think are we setting them up with the right social skills that they need to have conversations with their peers? Are we teaching them important life skills to be a successful person after they've graduated from our school system? I think a well-rounded education does that, and I think I think it's our responsibility to also help them become good learners, and in whatever subject that they choose to pursue in the future. I think there's some basics you have to learn to be a good student. I think we'd be doing them a disservice if we didn't put them in a position to succeed. And in whatever avenues that they choose later on in life, I think they have to learn how to be a good learner first.
So let's talk about, I want you to go like in the Wayback Machine
Okay.
and sort of think about what sparked your passion for learning and your lifelong interest in learning. Can you look back on your experiences? Is there anything that you can point to specifically? Like I have a teacher that 100% gets credit for my writing. I mean, she didn't teach me everything I know about writing, but she 100% inspired me to pursue it in a much more robust way than I probably would have otherwise.
Yeah. It sounds cliche, but I grew up in Woburn. Well, I've been in Woburn my entire life. I mean, I was lucky enough to have amazing teachers, elementary, middle school, and high school. And it's not one teacher. Luckily, it's not one teacher that I can point to that sort of led me down this path of wanting to give back and just for a love of learning. I think Woburn as a community, as a school system, and a community overall is just, it's so welcoming. And I was just so fortunate to grow up in it that I was just so lucky to be a part of it. Yeah. And I remember, like, you go back to the Joyce, with the Green and Blue reviews and your science fairs in high school and just all the wonderful learning experiences that we get to be a part of. And it all just goes back to the enthusiasm that teachers showed us and that students return it. Like they feed off the energy of each other. And I was just so fortunate to having been grown up in Woburn.
That's awesome. I want to talk about sort of some tactical stuff. So recently, the schools committee voted for masks through the end of October. DESE came out with some guidelines timing-wise after they made a whole bunch of school committees do a whole bunch of work. But putting that aside for the moment, when we look at that decision that the school committee made as a group, would you support that? Would you have supported that decision? And is there anything else that you would want to see from the discussions and things that happened around it?
Yeah, I think it was a tough decision. The committee voted 7-0, right, in favor of the masks. I would have voted to have a mask mandate as well. I unfortunately, it's not ideal that teachers are teaching in masks and students are learning in masks, but I think it's a great tool to be able to keep the schools open. And I think last year, the students and the teachers and the staff, they all did an amazing job in remote learning. But would we say it was ideal? Does any of us really want to rush back to that situation? Probably not. Some may, but I think the majority would do what it takes to keep our students and teachers in the classroom. And I think wearing masks and social distancing as best as we can, I think those are powerful tools right now to keep the schools open. And so yes, I would have voted to have the mask mandate as well. Yeah,
thank you. And I think that was really the reasoning that most of the school committee voted for that. It was to do that. One of the things that we've been hearing a lot of, so at the beginning of any school year, there tends to be some busing issues that arise. There are new routes, there's new families, there are all kinds of things. This year in particular is challenged. There's a general bus driver shortage, not talking specifically about Woburn, but just in general. And it was a little bit of a bumpy start for a lot of families. What role should the school committee play in helping address that concern?
Yeah, I mean, I think the school committee's role should be help setting expectations, right? So I think we have to, be clear in what our needs are from the different busing companies. And I think if there are challenges that they need to share with us, they need to be open and honest about those challenges with us. I think communication is key. I think, I don't think parents should be guessing as to what time their kids should be picked up in the morning or what time they're going to be dropped off. I mean, I think open lines of communication in real time are critical. And I think the school committee sets those standards and expectations, and I think it's on the administration to work with the bus companies to help out these families as best as they can, because I just don't think we should leave the parents guessing as to what's going on with their students busing. And so I think communication and holding the companies accountable with a reasonable understanding, being empathetic that there are staffing shortages, but in those instances, I think communication is key so that no parents are left guessing as to what's going on with their students, their kids.
I think that's a really interesting point, and I want to spend a minute talking about that. I think that a lot of the frustration comes from the communication. In all parts. I'm sure the busing companies get frustrated, and the parents are frustrated, and students are either frustrated or scared, or maybe they're happy they didn't make it to school. I'm not going to judge, right? I don't know. But there is this, the challenge is, like all the things that we do, I think one of the things that the school committee did, and the superintendent and all the staff did really well this last crazy year and a half, was attempt to be very open and transparent with their communications. And this is an example of another time where we need that. And I know each school handled it differently. I heard one principal got on the bus and drove around and talked to parents. And I'm not saying that that is the answer, but it certainly is a way to demonstrate how seriously they took that challenge. Kind of what's your philosophy on the transparency and the communication, and as a representative on school committee, how would you stay connected to the issues and challenges that the communities are hoping you can help them address?
Yeah, I mean, I think transparency is key. I mean, I think we've talked about it, open lines of communication is important. I think I've grown up in Woburn my entire life. So most of our family and friends are in Woburn. I have friends with kids starting preschool and some where their kids have already graduated college. And so I think I've organically developed a network to stay connected with everyone. Of course, there's social media, there's the Facebook pages, there's emails that people can absolutely reach out to me on. And I think there's just those traditional methods of communication to stay connected. And as big of a city Woburn is, it's also there's a homey, comfy feel to it as well. And so you know everybody. And so word gets around and you have conversation, you have different groups of friends, and everyone talks and they vent their frustrations and share their concerns. And it's very natural. I don't have too many formal lines of sort of reaching out, but it's just, you kind of just stay in touch with all your family and friends, and most get back to you. And then for the folks that you haven't had a chance to meet yet, you do have the emails, you do have the Facebook pages where they can reach out to you, and proactively I can reach out to folks as well and join some of these parent groups and whatnot to stay close to the issues. Again, communication is key and transparency is key, because I'm all for the minute I know something, you should know it as well, right? Because even in my professional experience, people make mistakes, there's tough situations, there's challenges, but if you're upfront and honest with folks and saying, this is what I know, this is what I don't know, most people are reasonable and they'll work with you to say, okay, get me something as soon as you can, or I really need this piece of information. So again, it goes back to, like you said, full transparency and open lines of communication.
Yeah, if we haven't learned anything this last year, it's that we can't control the outcomes and we can't always predict what's going to happen next, but we can know how to communicate with each other and stay connected. I want to talk a little bit about something I hope, even if elected to school committee, you actually never have to make a decision about. But there's been a lot of, I think, interest in making sure that we ask this question. I think it's a really fair question. So if the COVID vaccine gets approved for under 12, and even now in its current state approved for 12 and up, would you support a mandate for a mandatory vaccine, assuming we have religious exemption and medical exemption? That's always a given. But assuming that that is approved, like we do other vaccines, our students are required to do certain vaccines to enroll in our public school system. So the concept is not new, this particular vaccine being added to the list. And if you may or may not have a direct answer to that question, but I'd love to understand how you would approach building an answer to that question, which is probably more fair than putting you on the spot saying, would you support it or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd have to look at the environment that we're in at the time of FDA approval. What are the stats and science telling us? what's the community transmission like? Is it high? Is it low? Are we still masking? Are we still social distancing? Have we done all the environmental health and safety that we can across the school? Have we thought about putting air purifiers with HEPA filters in all the classrooms and in all the buildings so that we can improve air quality? Things like that. You know, what has the last, let's say it's a year from now, what has the last year showed us? Have we done well with these measures in the face of the Delta variant? Has it been bad and we need to sort of course correct? I think a lot of questions have to be answered first. But with that said, I think it would be tough to mandate a COVID vaccine for everyone in the next year or so. I think it's such a personal choice for families. And hopefully, if we're talking in ideals, if there is an FDA-approved vaccine, then that means it's available to all our student and staff populations, right? So there's no more vulnerable groups amongst us. And so if people choose to get it, it's a family decision, right? And if they choose not to, it's again a family decision, but they're also not putting others at risk, right? So in a perfect world, it truly becomes a personal decision where my family's decision doesn't affect the health and well-being of other families. So, but short of that, I think it's a tough call.
It is, and I wouldn't expect you to have a direct answer, but I think it's really, thank you for sharing. It's really helpful to understand. I know some folks have talked about if a vaccine mandate allowed us to eliminate masks, for example, that might be a criteria by which they would support something like that. Just different things to think about. So I think all of what you're saying makes sense, right? Let's look at the science, you look at the spread, you determine what the right next decisions are. And go from there. So thanks. You know, again, hopefully we're in a world where you don't have to make that decision, but it may in fact be something that comes to pass. One of the things that has been interesting this year is I've seen an increase in the number of families who are kind of struggling with what time does school start and where do I pick up the bus? And I think part of that is because we have a whole group of incoming families who were remote last year for their first year in the school system, plus your normal new families entering schools and such. One of the things that we might do to address that might be to do something like build an orientation packet of information, or I know we have orientation nights at different times for high school, but maybe we do more of that for other school systems and stuff before school starts. Would you support those kinds of efforts and want to see the school committee help make something like that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I mean, again, it goes back to the open lines of communication, the transparency. I think making sure parents have timely information is critical, and I think it would alleviate some of their concerns. And if it's start of the school year, it can be stressful for some. So if that can help, that would be great. I mean, I think, you know, not to be naive, I think that would take some dedicated resources to produce a program like that, to maintain it, to have it be successful. So if we're willing to sign up for a program like that, then we'd also have to be prepared to dedicate some resources, people's time, financial resources. I mean, onboarding's challenging, and even in a professional setting. I mean, it's something that we talk about all the time, and we always think of ways to improve it, because it's you know, starting something new is hard for the person starting and also for the person training, right? So it's I think it's a wonderful idea, but I think we'd have to be prepared to dedicate some resources towards it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm scarred by the experience of taking my high schooler and driving for the first time. I'd had other high school students, but I never drove them into school, and going in the wrong way where the buses go and I was not supposed to be, and not knowing to go around the corner, right? And so clearly that's not a very serious example, but it certainly created anxiety. And this was a number of years ago. My student has since graduated from high school and is entering their third year of college. So I clearly haven't gotten over that yet.
Yeah, I mean, we just lived through this a little bit. We live on Utica Street, and it's walking distance to the Goodyear. So we've always walked our kids to school. And then now that my daughter's in the 6th grade, we're trying to think, okay, what's the best way to get to the Kennedy? Where's drop off? And so you just,
Yeah.
You learn, but I mean, if there was, we got emails and they were helpful, but if there was a formal program and process to even help us out even a little bit more, I think it's a completely worthwhile
Yeah,
thing to do.
thank you for that. It may end up being something the PTOs help with, who knows?
Yeah.
But I think it's a great opportunity, again, focus on communication and transparency and the things that are happening there. One other question I want to talk to you about. So there has been a lot of vision around and some actions that have been taken to help diversify the staff who lead our schools. But currently, the staff at our public school system doesn't act, even sort of proxy represent the diversity in our student base. And we've talked in the past with folks about the value in having a diverse staff for students to identify with, all kinds of good things happen when we do that. What do you think we should be doing more of? And maybe if you've seen any examples where we've done a particularly good job or things that you've seen that you support that we've done in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd have to get a better understanding of what our current efforts consist of to really understand what the issues are. Are we not getting diversified candidates? Are we getting diversified candidates and we're not extending offers to those candidates? Are we extending offers to those diversified candidates, but they're not accepting the offers, right? So the answers to those questions really would allow sort of, okay, here's the issue, here's what we think is causing it, and then would allow us to course correct. I mean, at the end of the day, I think what we all want for the school system is to bring in the most qualified candidates and retain them for the life of their career. And so I think that's the goal. But, I think you'd have to learn more specific as to what the issues are. Because, for example, if we're not getting a diversified candidate pool, then we'd have to look at probably our recruiting process. And are we reaching out to the right organizations to reach a broader, more diversified candidate pool? Things like that. I mean, that's a big topic at a lot of private companies and industries right now. There's diversity, inclusion, and belonging officers at a lot of universities and a lot of companies. And rightfully so, it's an important piece. And I agree with what you said earlier. I mean, I think the benefits of having a diversified workforce and a diversified student population is just endless. I mean, I think it helps everyone. And so we'd have to really dig in and look at what the specific issues are, and then roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty, and try to solve it. And again, be open and transparent the entire time, and see what's within our means to make the situation better.
I love it. I know that you mentioned earlier that there wasn't like a experience that made you sort of fall in love with learning, and it was an accumulation of things, which is I think how it happens for a lot of individual people and such. But is there one or two teachers that you want to give a shout out to that made a mark on you as a student?
Oh.
Maybe because they rode you hard and pushed you, or maybe they were just extra nurturing, or whatever, for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I had so many wonderful teachers. I mean, in elementary schools, I mean, I had Mrs. Haggerty for first grade. She was amazing. I had Mrs. Melorani for third grade. I mean, they were just loving, enthusiastic teachers, and they were just wonderful. At the Joyce, I was on the Fidelity Higgins team, and they were just so fun to learn from. And again, they were so engaging, and I think energy feeds off it. The energy that the teachers give is reciprocated back from the students, and I was one of those students. I fed off the energy and the enthusiasm of our teachers. And in high school, I think, as the students mature, you have teachers that mature, right? I mean, I had Mr. Kaufman for history. He was amazing. Is it the same? I think it's the same Mr. Kaufman who then started teaching chemistry. He may have, because I think he was a chemistry teacher originally.
Yeah, I think he resents not being able to go back and teach history anymore, but is a good science teacher also. So
yeah. I mean, and that's what it is. I mean, I think it's, and all along there's just there's a sense of community amongst all the teachers, and against, when you're involved with students and sports and extracurricular activities, I mean, I think it just all plays into the experiences of being part of this school system in this community. I mean, people in Woburn have a lot of pride, and rightfully so, and I think it's our jobs as educators and school committee just to make sure that all students have the opportunity to feel a part of the system that was so good to me, and why I'm wanting to give back. But I think it's important that all students have that sense of belonging, and they feel included, and that that they're set up to succeed. And I think the teachers and the community play a big part in that.
Thank you so much for joining me, Shaun. This has been a really good conversation. I've loved getting to know you. I'm not one of the Friends and Family Network who knew you before, but I appreciate you being so responsive. I think we connected on Facebook.
Yep.
For those folks, actually, I think at one point maybe I'm trying to think if it might have been another candidate whose wife responded first and connected me to me.
That was probably my wife.
I think it was your wife, right?
It probably was. She's the social media guru.
I think so.
Yep,
I think so.
That was probably my wife.
Which was great.
Yep.
Is it Patricia?
Patrice.
Yep. Thank you. I was close.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite
Happens
there,
all the time.
but
Happens all the time.
yes. So I'm grateful for Patrice.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
I'm really glad. For those folks who would like to get to know you better and learn more about your candidacy and just stay in touch with things as you explore your campaign, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
So there is a Facebook page we set up, Shaun O'Keeffe for School Committee. And there's also, I set up a separate email that folks can reach out to me. It's just Shaun O'Keeffe schoolcommittee@gmail.com. And happy to hear from anyone and have conversations with folks and just stay connected, and we'll see what happens.
I love it. Well, congratulations on running. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And Woburn, as always, please continue to take good care of each other.